The next speaker is Hanna Shelest, Senior Researcher, National Institute for Strategic Studies, Odessa branch. Hanna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I will catch the last word of Michael about the, is it New World Order? And in my mind, there are two alternatives to the title. One is the New World Disorder, and the second one is, as you know, at the post-Soviet space, we celebrate not only New Year, but also Old New Year. So here I would rephrase it and will say that we have New Old Order. Because especially now, like, it is still not after Ukrainian crisis, it is still in the times of the Ukrainian crisis. What will be after, we can decide only when we understand what are the real consequences of the crisis. And it's still, unfortunately, we're just in the middle of the way. And we still can't predict what can be the best or the worst scenario, because there are too many options. However, we should look at the process that definitely we're talking about the post-Cold War. When does it finish? Is it finished? And is it really finished? Because when we even follow the official documents, some people hate them and say that it's just words, but at the same time, what we put in the documents, it is labeling, it is how we see one another, and very often it is the focus of our mind, despite all nice words that we can present at the official press conferences. So when we see the NATO strategist within these 20 years, especially two last in Chicago, for example, we see Russia as the partner. With every time a new adjective, is it strategic partner, is it the essential partner, but that is partner. And in this way, it's definitely that NATO countries shifted their perception, what is on the East, from the Cold War reality to the post-Cold War reality, trying to find the mechanisms. At the same time, when you go to the same year documents at Russian Federation, 2010, you see that at the whole military doctrine and the same as national security strategy, you see that NATO is a danger. And you can't find any phrase that NATO is a partner of Russian Federation. So for me it was always, and also it is several phrases that in case NATO will enlarge, Russia will use any means to secure its national interests, so on, so on, so on. So in some, why I put this example, that from 1991 or from 1989, depends when you start the new period, in Brussels, the reality changed, so you could start speaking about some kind of new order, new world order. When you go to the East, the reality hasn't changed. The partners are still perceived as a danger. Maybe not enemies, but definitely not as partners. So the logic and the conversation was not on the same level, not from the same sheet of papers. Doesn't mean that you perceive the same problems in Afghanistan or in Syria or about the Northern Korea, because Soviet Union and the United States also wonderfully cooperated in the Suez crisis. But we can't say that they were partners at that time. And because of this, we are coming to the reality of these days that for West, Europe was a finished business. It was an extremely popular phrase within NATO, meaning that no crisis can happen in Europe. Everything is great here, and we can concentrate on the new partnership with Brazil or with the African Union, and definitely Afghanistan, Iraq is the biggest problems that we face. And Europe is not a finished business, as we see. So, as a result, in 2014, all of us appeared extremely not prepared that something still can happen here. And it's happened not of the realities how to react to this, because I remember I spent half of this year at the NATO Defense College in Rome. I remember the lines of the NATO officers to my room asking questions daily. It was impossible to have a cup of coffee without talks about Ukraine and where it is. And really starting from geography to the understanding of the forces and so on. So it was a little bit shocked, like, you forgot they were better aware what was going on in Afghanistan, that where is Moldova, what military bases you have in Caucasus, and that there is still some army can be in the Crimea. That was really a little bit surprised because it was not only the question of the for me, it was probably the best symbol that all those agreements that we signed, I mean, we, the post-Soviet space, with, especially with NATO in 1994, 1997, about the distinctive partnership, these events showed that they are totally not operable. They are just documents. Because what I heard here during the first presentation, we need to increase interoperability, security sector reform. That is the same phrases that we heard in 1994. And that's for what? For 20 years we received money that nobody controlled how we spent them. So now we hear the same statements, the same propositions. Yeah, just now it is a little bit less about the bad quality ammunition, the destruction of it, but we hear about the cybersecurity. But what I'm afraid, I don't say that it shouldn't be, it definitely should, it is important for all of us, but I'm afraid that we are just repeating the same mistakes, that we are overestimated or underestimated what we are doing, and that nobody is controlling what we are doing. Because money spent to the security sector reform in Ukraine, for example, I don't see the result. I just see the spent or wasted money when I analyze in which condition now is army. At the same time, I can't say about the new world order because we still believe in the old things. We still believe in the United Nations. And when we speak about the Ukrainian crisis, all the time we are referring to the United Nations. And I can say that the Security Council meetings since January, it is the best TV show in Ukraine. If in the end of 2014 it will be again some awards for the best shows, believe me, United Nations Security Council meetings will get the highest ranking because the whole country was watching it live on YouTube, on the website of the United Nations. Because people still believed in this organization, that they really can solve the crisis. We still believe in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. We criticize it extremely, but at the same time, whom we called first, whom we have now the biggest amount of missions in Ukraine, OSCE. We still try to find some way how to improve the activities. We still believe in European Union, as we signed the association agreement. We still believe in the US, as every time our leaders are referring and asking for some assistance. So the basics, the metrics of the international system, nothing is changing. What is really changing is probably our perceptions, that we are becoming more critical, at least I hope, that we are becoming more critical towards this order. And we are finally not so reluctant to raise the questions that we need a reform of some of the mechanisms. It doesn't mean that the mechanisms are bad. That is the question that we misused many of these mechanisms and many of the norms that are still relevant. Yeah, the world changed since 1945, but the question of territorial integrity or that another state can't just intervene when they would like, they are totally the same. Nobody is disputing these issues now. And for me, it is really the question like what the future partnership will look like. Because we really now defined and differed too much the question of alliance, and NATO, not only at the Wales summit, but in plenty of other meetings, confirmed really the adherence and importance of all those obligations of the alliances. That's great. And at the same time, what we heard, for example, and probably Georgia heard in 2008 as well, that we can't help you because you're not a member. That's understandable, that's totally understandable. But at the same time, I opened the Charter on Distinctive Partnership, and I see that in the text of our distinctive partnership, there are plenty of mechanisms that we could use, but we were not using. So now, when, for example, NATO is going for the new partnership with Brazil or with African Union, for me it is really a question like how you can promote the partnership, how you can insist that the partnership is really something valuable. Because Ukraine, Georgia, even Armenia, which is not striving for the NATO membership, is actively participated in missions in Kosovo, in Afghanistan, assisting in some other operations or activities. And at the same time, when it was the real crisis, for many months, what we heard was only, we are deep concerned. The first biggest sanctions was not to allow the Russian mission to NATO personnel to enter premises of NATO without the person accompanying. It was fantastic sanction. It was definitely something that changed the relations. We turned to some real actions only, I don't know, 3-4 months. Was it necessary so many months to understand that Crimean annexation is something not normal for the current world order? Or is it normal for us that we are ready to sacrifice because it is not our territory? So, coming to some kind of conclusions, it seems to me that after the Ukrainian crisis, the several questions will really raise. One question will be, as I said, it is the partnership issue. The second is that what is important for us, just the internal national security, or we understand that any event can really touch us, that it's not something so far, because Ukrainian crisis can be only the first step, like who will be the next, or will it be the next, or where it will be stopped, because it's really Moldova can be the next, Latvia can be the next. And we are definitely speaking about now, not about military interventions, we are speaking about the possibility of the dramatic internal instability, and I mean triggering this instability. It can be language, it can be land, it can be different other things, but these potential conflict situations, they exist in most of the countries, and they're extremely easy to destabilize the situation. And also, it seems to me that we will need to re-estimate the events happening, because we like that much to put the labeling, and like events in Ukraine, Maidan, it is everything about European integration. It is not about European integration. It was just a trigger, that association agreement. The question was why we called it the revolution of dignity. And the next revolution, if they happen, it's not the same as 2003, 2004. At that time it was definitely falsification, it was something touchable. This time it is not touchable, it is dignity, meaning that people really would like to feel that they can do something, that they can change something, and that it will be not so easy to impose how others see their future. So the next changes, and we should be prepared for this, and either address them as the governments, or to be ready for the next Euromaidan somewhere in other parts, because now we are not just changing the system, we are changing ourselves. So for me, the real collapse of the Soviet Union is not 1991, at least for Ukraine, but it is now, because now we are stopping to identify ourselves as a post-Soviet. We are starting to identify ourselves with the real something new happening here.